got the real power guy on the front and I'm on the back now.
Okay, great. You don't mind white you say you're safe.
Yes.
Yep. Dave, you gonna be there tomorrow morning at CIC?
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a few minutes after this meeting to just touch on some notes for tomorrow. I'll see if I got it. Okay, we ready? Are we fired up?
Yeah.
Okay. Sammy? Okay, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled Sylvania Township Board of Trustees meeting on December 3rd at 4 p.m.
Well, the roll, Mr. Haddad is not here at this time. Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Mr. Genowine?
Here.
Simcoe here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Neil, did you have any changes to the...
No, it looked fine. Thanks for getting it out, Sam. Appreciate it.
We'll offer a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second?
Okay, and Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Zeitler, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I have one addition under the administrator. I'd like to show you a tentative policy. Last meeting, we directed me to work on a policy for reports from members of the trustees report. I have one that I'd like you to look at. If you like it, you can pass it. If not, you can do this, you need to do that.
Okay.
Great.
We'll probably look at it and pass it next time, but, okay. Hearing of the public on agenda items.
It looks like they're all under zoning issues, so
Well, Daryl's first up, so we might as well go ahead with them. Ann Levison, if you could step up to the microphone and state your name and address, we would appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Ann Levison. I'm at 6740 Monarch Drive in Monarch Meadows, and I, as one of the neighbors, have a lot of questions on the building that's going up there. I was hoping there would be some kind of a drawing or something that we can look at, because there's been a lot of...
Do you think it would help if maybe they explained first prior to speaking? What you
You want to go that route? You want to let the...
Would that be okay with you, Ms. Levinson, if we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from them.
Okay. So at this time, Daryl, you want to...
Yeah, I've got a little PowerPoint.
Okay.
Okay, great. Why don't you take it from here and work in, Mr. Feller?
Okay, the applicant's requesting a change in zoning from R1 to R3 PUD, Plan Unit Development, for the property at 3621 McCord Road. This property is located at the northwest corner of McCord and the University Parks Bike Trail, and is approximately equidistant between Central and Sylvania Avenue. The property is currently a vacant lot, zoned R1 residential, and is just less than 1.5 acres in size. Property is bounded on the north and the west by R1 medium-density single-family residential, and and on the south by RA low-density suburban residential, which is undeveloped, and the University Parks Bike Trail. Bounded on the east by A4 low-density rural residential and R1 medium-density single-family residential.
You guys restart? Sorry, you got my front end rebuilt on my truck.
We just started here with their presentation.
The applicant has requested this zone change from R1 to R3 PUD in order to construct a residential 8-unit duplex development. Each unit will have a 2-car garage plus driveway parking for additional vehicles. There will be one main access drive off of McCord Road into the development. A smaller but similar development can be seen in the city of Sylvania at the Cottages at Olander condominium development on Sylvania Avenue. This development has half the units and approximately half the lot size as the proposed development, and with smaller units. There's a conceptual rendering of the proposed duplex units. As the property is currently zoned R1, it can be developed with as many as 4 single-family dwellings with minimum setbacks of 7 feet on the sides and 35 feet on the rear. The proposed R3 PUD development would have 4 duplexes with north side setbacks ranging from 11.5 to 18 feet, that's along Monarch Meadows, and a 30-foot rear setback also along Monarch Meadows. The setback on the south side would be 30 feet, and that's along the bike trail. Sylvania Township Land Use Plan advocates this area of the township as suburban residential, generally single-family uses with a density of 2 to 6 units per acre. The proposed PUD calls for 8 units, works out to 5.6 units per acre. The surrounding subdivisions have between 3.7 and 5 units per acre. This proposed PUD meets all the requirements for an R3 PUD except one. Section 2222 of the zoning resolution requires a 100-foot front setback from the center line of McCord Road for all structures. The proposed PUD requests an 80-foot front setback for the 2 dwellings closest to McCord Road. Approval of the PUD encompasses approval of the setback variance. The applicant will provide landscape screening along the adjoining residential properties to the north and west. The detention pond will be created in the northeast corner of the property for drainage. If the property were to be developed as it is currently zoned R1, neither landscape screening nor detention ponds would be required. And this is the revised site plan showing the sidewalk along McCord and increased screening on the north and the west side. Proposed access drive for the development is roughly in the middle of the frontage along McCord Road. And this just shows where the existing curb cut is from the previous single-family dwelling and then the proposed location for the curb cut. Approval of this proposed zone change was recommended by the Lucas County Plan Commission and unanimously recommended by the Sylvania Township Zoning Commission. Sylvania Township zoning staff recommends approval of the zone change request from R1 to R3 PUD. The requested zone change is generally consistent with the objective of the current township land use plan for this area, and the density, while higher than the surrounding area, is compatible with that of the neighboring subdivisions and would have greater side setbacks than the present R1 zone classification. Lastly, the changing demographics are resulting in a transformation in current housing desires. 2 largest generational cohorts, the aging baby boomers and the millennials, are both trending toward living environments consisting of smaller dwellings and higher density. This new duplex development would address the township's need to meet these future housing demands of the community while maintaining the residential character of McCord Road. And lastly, the Sylvania Township zoning staff recommends approval of this zone change request be predicated on the applicant meeting all of the 32 conditions presented in the Lucas County Plan Commission's and Sylvania Township Zoning Department staff reports. And that's all I have.
Mr. Feller, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Not too much. Daryl did a great job. I just want to point out that we do agree with all the comments that the Lucas County Plan Commission recommended for the site plan, so we don't have a problem with that. I just want to touch on a couple of the issues that have been brought up in the past. One issue was parking. When we first submitted the plan, at the very beginning, it was shown with one-car garages, and we've since expanded that to two-car garages. So now there's more parking on site, 2 cars in the garage, room for 2 cars behind the garage in front of each unit. So there's definitely more parking now than there was before. And that was a concern. Traffic has been brought up. And just, as Daryl said, if the lot was split, it could be split up into 4 lots with 4 houses. 4 single-family homes would generate about 40 trips per day during a weekday. And with our development, and this is all per the ITE traffic manuals, but our development would generate about 48 trips per day. So the difference is 8 trips per day or a car every 3 hours. So the traffic impact between what could be with 4 lot splits and what we're proposing is very negligible. And then, just one other thing I want to point on is and Daryl kind of touched on this, is the setback to the north. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. We are offering, for all the comments, a solid evergreen screening along the entire north property line. And I really want to stress that if this development didn't happen and the land was developed into 4 lots with 4 homes, that requirement would not be there. A house could be put 7 feet off that north property line, a single-family home with no landscaping, as Daryl said, no detention. So while I understand the concerns, definitely we feel that this is a better for the surrounding neighborhoods than just a standard single-family house. Like I say, you wouldn't get any screening, the drainage, those types of things. And that's, I guess, really all I wanted to touch on. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We'll stay close.
Mrs. Levinson?
Have my husband go into that?
Sure.
It was next.
Yeah.
My name's Jerome Levison, 6740 Monarch Drive. I have some reservations about the density of the 8 units on that property compared to Monarch Meadows, which is totally surrounding the area. And I think that is something that has to be taken into consideration. It's got to fit in with the adjacent neighborhood. Monarch totally encompasses it. The only variation is across the trail. That's wetland. Part of this property also is considered as a wetland. I don't know if the people knew that. Anything close to that trail floods. That is a problem there. The area in Monarch Meadows is serviced by Sylvania Township Water Department, which comes out of Toledo, and the Sylvania Sewer System, which is also it's going to be part of this area. All the homes in Monarch Meadows either have to have 2 water taps, one for irrigation, one for home use. Other than that, your water bills in this new complex are going to be about $600 a billing period for the individual condos because of the water rate that we have to pay to Sylvania Township and Lucas County. I've already gotten bills of $600 and $700 before I put in a well, which Costs us a couple $1,000s to do that. The well went dry after 2 years because the neighborhood had built up. And now we had to put in a second meter and have to pay for the city of Toledo to come out and read the meter twice a year so that we can use the water meter for the irrigation to reduce our water bill in half, because we're not paying for sanitary sewer for the use of that water. It's something I don't think the builder knew about, and I'm trying to inform the people at this point in time that if they're going to buy a unit in there, they're going to need 2 water meters. Other than that, they're going to pay $600, two periods on the billing cycle to the city of Toledo for the water usage in there. Because all that water, if they only have 1 meter, all that water is going to be charged at the rate that it's going to be going through the sewers. That's why you need 2 meters in there. Two-car garage, the driveway is going to be 15 foot. And not long enough to put 2 cars on the driveway, one behind each other. Now, once you get those 2 cars on the driveway and the 2 cars in the garage, what are you going to do for people that come for a party or something like that? Where are they going to park? There's no provision made for parking in that area there. It's going to be a traffic jam trying to get in and out. They have to have a radius of 25 feet, I think, for turning radius in there. There's no room for additional parking. We feel in Monarch Meadows that a possible change from 8 units to 6 units would put it within the surrounding area density, and that would also give some room for additional car parking for people to come in and visit. If you look at that 1 unit, the retention pond totally is the front yard of the house. That, I don't know, it's going to be a pond or a depression in there to collect the water. Now, is that pond going to be serviced by individual drains feeding into it? When it rains, it's going to fill up. So that front yard is going to have a problem there. Anybody that buys that property might have a real problem when you get a 2 or 3 inch downfall. That's our concerns. I don't know if there's anything else, or has anybody else got anybody else on the list? Yeah. Also, dumpsters. Monarch Meadows has no dumpsters. We don't want a sanitary truck, a front loader, or a rear loader coming in there and dumping containers. There should be no dumpsters in this property, and the garbage should be either held in the people's garages or someplace out of sight. That's the way it is in Monarch Meadows, and we feel that should be one of the provisions made for this neighborhood. That's about it that I have.
Thank you.
Can double check, when you, just so maybe I didn't catch it, Mr. Levinson asked the question about the density and thinking that's too dense, and you've indicated that it fits within the PUD? In Monarch Meadows even? Okay.
The land use plan calls for 2 to 6 units per acre.
Right.
For that area of the township, and this comes in at 5.6.
Okay.
So it is higher density than the surrounding area, but it's within the land use plan's recommendation.
Next. Diane Christ.
I'm Diane Christ. I live at 6715 Sweet Bush Court. My backyard is the backyard that butts up on the north side of this property. I know that everybody likes to think that's a side yard, but it is my backyard. It is my neighbor's backyard. When Monarch Meadows was laid out, every house in Monarch Meadows that butts up to this property is a rear yard. The rear yard setbacks, I believe it is supposed to be 35 or 40. I thought it was supposed to be a 40-foot setback from rear yards. At one point on the north side, there are like 11.4, and the other at the front point of that, it's 18. Now they're saying they're going to plant bushes there, evergreens. Well, I have lots of evergreens, and I know that you're not going to be able to put an evergreen there of any size in an 11.4-foot area. If you do, within a few years, you're going to be cutting it down because it's going to grow into your house. And then it's going to end up, we're going to have all these trees chopped up and down, and they're going to be in our backyards. The other thing is, that whole area, as Jerry had said, the water table is pretty high. We can hit water at 8 feet. But on the east, or on the south side of that bike trail, that is wetlands, it can't be built on. This property, 30 feet or so of it is a Toledo Edison easement. That's why they're given 30 feet. We're supposed to be real thankful that on the bike trail side of this property, there's a 30-foot setback. Well, it's because they can't build on it. It's Toledo Edison easement. Well, they've got this drainage pond in that front corner. When they plant their bushes, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but if they try to do any kind of drainage into that pond, I don't know that they have enough space in that 11 feet with their landscaping that it's not going to all end up in my backyard. That is one issue. The other issue is, I mean, we built our house 21 years ago. There was a house there. It wasn't the greatest house, but we knew what we were getting when we bought it. Now you're talking 8 buildings there. I talked to the builder when we were downtown at the county. Build less. Why do you have to fit 8? His response was, that's the only way we can make money. Well, you know, you've got families in Monarch that have lived here a long time. We've all seen our property values drop since 2008. One of our neighbors is fairly new in the subdivision, and he has a lot of backyard that butts up to this property. He has already said he would have never bought that house if he would have known some developer was going to come in, try and stick as many buildings on this little property that they could. So what happens then down the road if my husband and I want to sell our house, or anybody else? Are our property values going to go up? We've been good taxpayers for years in Sylvania. And when I ask questions, nobody seems to want to answer. But the zoning laws and like those setbacks, why should they be given a variance to not have to follow those zoning laws? If it was me coming to you and saying, hey, I want to put an addition on, do you care? You're going to tell me no. Is it because they're always in the office here? I don't know. When we were downtown for county, they said the variance problem was up to township. They passed it, but they said those are things township's going to have to deal with. And that's fine. And when I came to zoning, I was here in '04 when this PUD went through, but it wasn't an R3 PUD. And you know, there was some funny stuff going on when that happened too, when Mr. Peebles was here. A lawsuit was brought up on it, but the people who were going to build on this property went bankrupt, so the lawsuit got dropped. This doesn't fit. Like he said, it's all residential or residential agricultural all around this property. Why on earth do we need? I understand, I'm a baby boomer. We have plenty of baby boomer housing in Sylvania Township. There are condos and townhouses all behind Sylvan Woods area there at Sylvania Avenue. There is all kinds of stuff being built out Sylvania Avenue. You have all the Cary towns. There is plenty of rental and condos and apartments. The other thing, when I called county, before this went to county, they're building a big apartment complex just south of Sylvania Avenue off of McCord Road. And I said, what does that do to the traffic in that area, and they told me, well, it's not built yet, so we can't consider that. Well, by golly, it's already been approved, they've got stakes out there, I think somebody needs to look at that. They're going to have a driveway 50 feet from the University Bikes Trail. I consider my backyard, I've seen people get hit by cars, traffic backs up, I can't get out of Monarch Drive half the time. I work in downtown Sylvania, I sometimes have to drive through Farmbrook to go out to Sylvania Avenue because you can't turn left at peak times. Now you're going to put 8 condos or duplexes or townhouses, we've heard them called varying things. You could have families in all 8 of those units. They could have teenagers who have cars. So you're going to have all of that traffic trying to get out. When the light's red at the bike trail, they back up sometimes almost to Monarch. I don't understand. I understand, you want to put 3 or 4 houses there and they're going to have cuts? Well, I guess so be it, but at least it's a single-family residence. It's not this big block of units sitting in the middle of Monarch Meadows. It is a residential area. It is not a condo spot. That property, if you look at the true setbacks in that, you really don't have the room to put 8 units there. So that is my list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, they don't say, wait 1 second. They don't say, there's been some changes on this. Sometimes, when we were first notified, they said they were rental property. Then the builder said, oh no, we would love to sell them. Well, if they're rentals, then you're talking a whole different ballgame. I mean, we're families. I mean, I have 6 grandkids. Do I have to worry about them going over the fence or something? You're going to have this pond over there that could fill up, because it's going to fill up if they put any kind of depth in it. I don't know. It shouldn't be.
Joe?
Last name is hard to pronounce.
Well, I wasn't sure.
No problem, no problem. My name is Joe Bedian, and I live in the northwest corner of where this proposed zoning change is being asked for. And even though I am on the board of the association, I don't speak for the association, so I just want to make that clear. First of all, I'm not against the development, don't get me wrong, and I don't think any of my neighbors are against the development. But I know particularly, like in the business I'm in, when we come into a community and we're going to build something, there's a process of the zoning change and all the rules and regulations, but in fairness, I think there's those soft things you look at, and we always do that, and we always go to the community and we always talk to the neighbors. And we talk to them about noise, lighting, shrubbery, fencing, turnouts and things like that. There's certainly all of the engineering things that have to be covered and easements and things like that, but I think the problem here is more the process. The problem is that we have more questions than we had answers, and no one, at least to my knowledge, gave us the courtesy, I think, particularly when you're dealing with an association of 35 or 36 units, to come forward and say, this is what I'm proposing, this is the kinds of things I want to do, what are your concerns? He may not be able to address them all, but at least gives you the feeling you're getting some kind of input into the process. And it seems to me in a zoning, the objectives of the zoning would be, you want to find is it suitable for the purpose? And I think, and most of my neighbors I think would agree, that we want it to be R1. We're okay with residences. I think you can look at there and be a non-engineer gentleman and say, do you think 8 units in that little bit of space is really the right density in a surrounding community? It doesn't to me, but that's just my gut reaction. I think obviously you want to talk about maintaining the property values. I mean, most of the homeowners, other than one gentleman who recently moved in there, I think bought with the intention that that was going to continue to be R1 for private residences. I think to put this in here, and in his case, to take 80 or 90% of his backyard is, I think you just got to really question that. I think, you have to, you obviously have a fiduciary responsibility for public safety, and things of that nature. I think some of the people will come and talk about the traffic flow, and you know McCord, the corridor there, and the concerns about that, and, you know, the amount of traffic. Again, if you want to put private residences in there, R1, and there's a few turnouts, so be it, not a problem. I think to imply that, you know, something like a 20% increase from 40 to 48, I'll let that stand on its merits, particularly near that bike trail and the light that was recently put there, and some of the folks that are going to have a real problem now with that increased traffic and volume even getting onto McCord and into their house. We talked about the density. Again, I think there's way too many units in that area. The obstructive view, you know, like Diane talked about, and another gentleman that we'll talk to you about, I mean, it's literally being pushed right up into their backyard. So again, not against development, no problem with that. We all like that on the McCord kind of parkway area there. You know, it's been very steady community. You know, people maintain their homes, maintain the value, pay their property taxes. I think what you're trying to do is where they're trying to shove something in there that just doesn't meet the general area there where you are with single-family homes. So what I'm asking for is number one is, I didn't know most of these things, so as a courtesy, I think we should have known these things, because that's what you do when you come into a community. And if you run a business, I think you do those things. And number two is, I think it would be fair to say most of the homeowners are asking you to at least consider that it stay at a minimum the R1 for private residence, and they go through the appropriate easements and zoning for that, and if it ends up being 2 or 3 homes on the property, then so be it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis? Willis?
Mine's not much better than Joe's here. It's Willarius, yes.
Sorry.
My name's Danny Willarius. I live at 3611 Swallowtail Lane. My property, I'm probably the one affected by this project the most. My property abuts almost the entire western property line here, basically from about right here all the way on down is the property that I own. My biggest concern with this project is, as it's been mentioned before, is the density of units in this development. I purchased my home just a few years ago and did some homework and was with the knowledge that this was R1, and that was acceptable to me, and I was glad to know that. I went forward and purchased my property just recently. The units per acre here, I know that the 8 units on a 1.4 acre site just barely slides under this allowed the 6 units per acre that's specified in the land use plan. If you take the 8 units by the 1.4 acres, it's 5.6, which is just barely under. However, with this 50-foot Toledo Edison easement that runs along the southern portion of the property, the actual buildable part of the property is only just a hair over an acre. It's 1.0 and some change. So the actual buildable portion of the land, again, is, let's call it an acre for the sake of conversation. Now we're talking about 8 units per acre, where, well, in the general scope of things, we call it 5.6, but you're really kind of shoehorning it all into 1 acre. The other 0.4 acres is really, it's not buildable due to that easement. And when they talk about the land use plan and the adjoining subdivisions and the density of those subdivisions, everything that's been done and what was proposed in the study has all been looked at as a generalization. They kind of take Farmbrook, Monarch Meadows, Sylvan Woods, and they kind of take the surrounding maybe a 2-mile radius and lump those all in and say that those are on average 4 to 5 units per acre. Monarch Meadows, which is this close, small, tight-knit subdivision that essentially encompasses this whole piece of property, is 35 homes on a total of 14 acres, which is only 2.5 units per acre. So Monarch Meadows is at the very, very bottom of that spectrum. This property is at the very, very top of that spectrum, and I believe exceeds it when you consider what's buildable and what's not. So for those reasons, I oppose this development. And like Joe mentioned, we're not, I think the majority of the neighborhood and the adjoining neighbors and everybody, we don't oppose the development of this property. We just oppose it being developed in this fashion. And if there's one sentiment that's been echoed over and over again, a bigger concern is just the introduction of the R3, zoning designation into this single-family corridor. The entire corridor there, at the exception of the lots that are actually on the corner of the intersections of like McCord and Sylvania, the whole corridor down through there is all R1 and A4. And once you introduce R3 into this area, even if somebody was to say we find this acceptable and you introduce R3, once you bring R3 into this corridor, there's no way to stop further R3 development in that corridor. Once you bring R3 in, it's my feeling it's very difficult to stop somebody who wants to buy a couple 5-acre parcels that are A4 right across the road if a developer wants to buy those and build apartment buildings. How could you say that you couldn't? Once you already have R3 in there, it's in there. I think once you do that, you open Pandora's box for R3 designations all throughout that corridor, and that's when the property values become affected. Does this, property values are something that's been brought up by a lot of the neighbors. Do I feel that this project, in and as of itself, negatively affects property values? Probably not. I know the developer, he builds beautiful homes and does quality construction, but once you start surrounding this with other things that could possibly be zoned R3 and other developments, you're not going to be able to say no to that, and that's when our property values become negatively affected. So, for those reasons, I oppose it. I also would like to just give, for the record here, I went around and canvassed the neighborhood of all the homes within about 100 yards of the property. There's 35 homes in Monarch Meadows. I have petitions here from 29 of them that I'd like to give to you, all of whom feel the same way that I do and oppose the project because of the R3 designation. Developed in R1, that'd be fantastic. In this fashion, I would say no. So I'd just like to leave these here. Bye, man.
Thank you very much.
Patrick?
I'm Patrick Milliken. I live at 3540 North McCord Road, one of the few people on the other side of the road who's actually opposing this, and I have to disagree with you. This affects my house way much more than yours, and I'll tell you why. This is the development. This is the bike path. My house is right here. And the first house, they won't even show it on there, but up here, okay, there's the site. The bike path runs right through here. My house is right here. Right? The first house, before you hit that red light, going north on the right-hand side. It's on Blossman and McCord. There's one house there. That's mine. And it only took me 8 minutes to get out of my driveway to come here today, and that was at 3:45. Now, if it had been 4:15, it might have took me 10, 15 minutes to get out of my driveway. I was here last time in 2004. And last time in 2004, the same problem presented itself in a different fashion, in that they tried to cram even more units on that lot than they're trying to put now. And that's eventually why it went under, because they weren't allowed to put as many units as they wanted on it. They also wanted the setback variance, which everybody fought. I mean, if our rules say you got to be 100 foot, why do you change it for this one piece of property and say, fine, you can do 80? Because if you go back 100, there's no way they can put 8 units in. So, I mean, this all comes down to how many units you can squeeze on that property to make it economically feasible to change it from R1 to a PUD. And everybody will tell you this all comes down to money. If they can only put 6 units there, they might not make enough money to do it. Which is why they have to cram in the 8 units and ask for a variance at the same time. Well, one of the problems I have, and it was partially addressed by the developer when he said that if there's 4 homes put on there, that the traffic would be 40 trips per day. What I didn't understand is if you double that and put on 8 units, the other 4 units only make 8 trips a day? I mean, doesn't it make sense if you put 8 units on instead of 4? The traffic's going to double. It's going to go from 40 trips to 80 trips, especially if you have teenagers who are there, who drive back and forth to school.
and back and forth to their sports things, and back and forth to the mall and every place else. Now, the problem I have, and I can't really show you because it doesn't really show it, my driveway sits 1.5 cars back from the sign that says "Stop here" for the bike path. So if 2 cars come up, I can't get out of my driveway. Now, on the other side of the bike path, there is the bike path parking, and there's a residence driveway. And the turn lane is has a left-hand arrow for all of that, because there's nothing on the right-hand side going south, so it's left turn so you can get into the bike path parking and into this residence, and there's another driveway there too. They're looking at putting a driveway right in the same area, okay, where the people pulling out of this development, if they wanted to go north, they would have to turn into the turn lane and then weave their way into the other lane. But at the same time, that's going to keep people who are going to come down going to the bike path. You're causing head-on collisions daily. Because this isn't a 25-mile-an-hour road. It isn't a development like Monarch. What's your speed limit, 35? You're 25? We're 45. We're 45. We came in and asked before for this to be, when they changed the road. We asked for a study to be done to take us down to 35, because Holland, Sylvania is 5 lanes. It's only 40. We're 45. You're going to have people coming in and out of this, especially if they're telling us that they're going to put in millennium people who are older and more safe drivers. Are they going to be able to whip out into a 45-mile-an-hour turn lane? It's not going to happen. And if you get one person or 2 people who come across, they have to pass the bike path parking lot, they have to pass that next driveway, then they can get into the turn lane. So you can have enough room for maybe 1-2 cars before this driveway. And if you have 3 people that want to turn left, it's going to back up the road all the way down to Central Avenue. I've seen it happen. Which means, what's the impact on my house? Either I leave before 7:30 in the morning to go to work and don't come home until, well, coming home's not a problem because I can whip around. But backing out of my driveway to go either north or south in the morning, or during rush hour from 4 to 7, you can't do it. Now you're going to add, you're telling me you're only going to add 48, even if it's 48 more trips. And half of those are going north, and if there's high school kids, they're going to be going north because the high school is north of there. I mean, you're asking for ambulances to be parked out in that road because you're going to have head-on collisions. I mean, I've called people and gone out and actually assisted people who got hit by people running that red light on the bike path. I've had them land bleeding in my front yard. And that is without adding these extra people in and out. I mean, people don't stop at that light sometimes, and sometimes they do. But now adding this type of traffic to it, I mean, I also agree. I mean, I have no problem with that being R1. If they can fit 4 houses on it, fine. But they're going to put 4 nice houses, which isn't going to drag down our value. I mean, this project, I don't care how nice these units are, they're smaller, they'll be smaller than most people's houses in Monarch Meadows. And they'll probably be about the same size as mine, but mine's a single-family dwelling, and it's brick. These probably won't be all brick. The 45-mile-an-hour, I mean, I don't think anybody's really taking that into consideration because that makes a huge amount of difference. on ingress and egress, especially with that turn lane. And it's not like they're going to change McCord Road because they just did a few years ago. They're not going to redo it and put in 2 lanes each way. So, those are the problems I have. The major one being the safety and the welfare of the neighborhood people and the bike path people because of the extra traffic that's going to be generated by this. And I don't believe that we should sit back and kowtow and say, we've got zoning laws, but we're going to make an exception for you. We're going to make an exception for you so you can fit 8 units. Because if we don't make this exception, you can't fit 8 units. You might be able to fit 6. And then you won't make as much money, or it won't be economically viable to do this. I mean, the property is nice property. If they put regular houses on it, it would be beautiful. I don't think anybody would object. Even with the threatened 7-foot non-setback, at least you got a house next to you instead of a box. So I'd ask you to turn this down and just keep it R1.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Feller, you're listed on here as someone, I'm assuming you've already spoke, but I did have a question for you. The size of these units, square footage wise, and how many bedrooms?
Can I answer that?
Yep, Mr. White.
Was that just a simple question, or?
You can address it. I did that. That was what I wanted to ask. But if you would answer that and then address any other issues you wanted to touch on.
The square footage is going to. Sure. Mike White. I own Buckeye Real Estate Group, and I will be the developer of this project if it does move forward. My intention is to build an approximate 1,700 square foot 2-story dwelling. I don't have the final plans put together because I'm waiting to see what all comes from this. I can tell you that what I am trying to do is I've built out a subdivision called Legacy Village in Forest Lakes off of Bancroft between Centennial and Crissy. And I purchased the last 28 lots in there, and those were the empty nester, 0 lot line homes in there. I am building my last home in that subdivision currently, and I'm out of lots, and there's still demand for that type of a product. In that subdivision, I've done between 1,500 and 2,200, 2,300 square foot homes, and so I'm looking to figure out the next spot because there is demand for new product. There's plenty of older product in the township, but people are looking for new. I can also tell you that my goal is to be somewhere around $100, $110 a foot on the sales price of it. So that being said, my goal is to stay at and around that $200,000 price point. It's not just going to be a box. I'm going to detail the exterior with stone, dress up the front doors, garage doors. I think you saw that on the overhead projection. So, I'm not asking just to come in here and do a sided, 4-sided townhouse or villa. I'm not looking to rent these units. I'm looking to sell them, but I can't stand up here and tie my hands either. If the market turns south, just like Monarch Meadows has the right to rent their houses if it turns south. Same kind of thing, but I'm not setting out to be an apartment complex to rent these units. I'm looking for the sale of these units. Just to give you an idea also, I did the average in 2013 on Monarch Meadows on the sales. I believe there's 4 homes sold through that time frame. And that average sales price was $66 a foot versus what I am intending to be somewhere between $100 and $110 a foot. So there is some variance. I know I'm on the smaller side, but, you know, they had one house sell for $185, they had another house sell for $119, so you know, there are some low prices happening in there as well.
Those were foreclosures.
I understand, but it's the reality of the marketplace, too.
Can
I
I
did-
ask a question?
Go ahead, yes.
Why was the design for 8 rather than 6 units there? I mean, it seemed like many of the residents said that they were more comfortable with the number 6, and it just I mean, obviously, there's more units than that would, but...
The overall economics of the project, and, you know, when you offset lot costs, when you offset sewer taps, water taps, those kind of things, when you divide it out, it makes it a more feasible potential development.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for interrupting,
Oh,
but I just...
no, that's fine. After the first meeting down at the county, I did, you know, it was brought up that I had not talked to any of the neighbors. I did talk to Brandy. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your first name. Yes. Yes. So I had some conversation with her after that meeting, explained to her what I was trying to accomplish here. We exchanged an email. In my email back to her, you know, please, if you want me to come and talk to the group, I'd be happy to do that. I have not heard from her since. So I'm not trying to hide out and not bring forward. I also think, especially here at the prior meeting, the zoning board meeting, all this information was brought up and shown to everyone, so I'm not hiding what I'm trying to accomplish here. I also am well aware that the township spent a lot of money over the years and a lot of time to develop their land use program and what they want in certain areas. I feel this is part of what they're looking for, this type of dwelling, as the folks in Sylvania Township do begin to age and are looking for newer units that aren't several miles out to the west. That brings me back to the person that potentially in the marketplace that I'm looking to sell to is that empty nester. I'm not looking to, I don't perceive a family buying this house with 4 children with several drivers. That was brought up at the prior meeting, and I use that as an example that if this was single-family homes, my own home, to speak of, I'll have 5 cars here in another year, and I have, you know, high school and college kids coming and going quite a bit. This is not the concept that I'm looking to do there. The concept is an empty nester, 50 to 70-year-old type of person that is still very capable of driving and controlling their vehicles. The other item, one last thing I'd like to bring up is I believe that I've designed this architecturally nicely to accent and hopefully make it appealing to the area. If you go further south, one gentleman brought up, you know, this opens the floodgates. I think the floodgates were open if you go down further south on McCord and look at those duplexes that are right up against the street, rental properties that are not real attractive and not very well kept. So you know, this might actually clean some of that up as opposed to bring it down. I understand. So, that's all I have. Any other questions?
No. Fire chief, do you have anything on is it past your, I mean, do you guys take a look at this proposal and?
I don't believe we've had a chance to take a look at the proposal, or normally we don't get this type of proposal.
Okay.
So we don't really have any say in this.
It does, trustees, do you have any other questions or things you want to bring up, or?
No, I just think the traffic's pretty heavy on Court Road as it is, and plus the approval of building that apartment complex over by the church there, that's going to increase the traffic too. And I am worried about the trail because there has been a lot of accidents over there. That's my major concern is the trail. I would like to see lower density, but I would like to prove something over there about lower density.
I'd like maybe just say a couple things, whether it sounds good or not, to you folks, 'cause I appreciate you spending your time coming here tonight. I'm not a professional planner, and I'm not a zoning person. I'm just a township trustee that tries to look out the best interest for the people as a whole in the township. When you have Lucas County Planning Commission in 2004 that unanimously approved it, a project that's actually smaller than what we're dealing with today. Actually, 1990, I'm looking back at the history here. 1990, this was zoned R1. In 2004, it was zoned PUD. And if you don't mind me calling your first name, Diane, or because I don't know or it's Diane Chris, that extinguished in 2009 based on a lack of the economies and things like that, and it's opened back up. And as I look back at 2004 and 2004 and in 2009 and now 2013, nothing's really changed with respect to what's been trying to accomplish here. And again, I'm not a professional planner, but looking at when Lucas County unanimously approves it 2 other occasions, our zoning department person that's paid to look at these projects, does it fit within the guidelines of what we're trying to do out here? Again, I'm not a planner or a developer. But when all these kind of match up, and then you see unanimous zoning by our zoning department that actually does this they really study these things, and I try to study this as best as I can. But I don't know. I feel for you guys. I live off Nantucket. You talk about a freak show going up and down to Hobby Lobby, Sakura, Bar 145. I've got, Rick City Diner now. I know what you guys are feeling. I feel the same way off Nantucket, believe me. And I'm on Sylvania. Well, they cut through Nantucket to get to Sylvania. Like maybe, I'm not sure. We've had a speed trailer there a few times, Chief, right? So they do fly down Nantucket, but it's not apples to apples. But what I'm trying to do is at least feel a little bit of what, I'm trying to feel a little bit of what you're dealing with here, because I agree with you.
Then the zoning laws really don't mean anything.
Well, they actually zoning law,
comes in.
That's not true.
He can't fit his 8 units.
That's not true. It fits within the tolerances of the zoning.
But he has to fit 8 to make money.
That's not true.
He needs a zoning variance. So what you're telling me is, but it fits into our guys in the office, it kind of fits into the density, so we'll just say it's okay. You don't.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Gerald, if you could help me here before I start thinking, because again, I'm not the professional here, but from what I'm understanding is it all fits within it. Okay, let's hear it, Darrell, if you would, please.
I even asked him about setbacks and he wouldn't answer. He gave me a runaround.
Okay, well, let's hear it now, if we could, please.
Ask me?
Yeah, when I came and got the copies of the minutes from 2004, I asked you what the setbacks were on that property for rear and side setbacks, and you said, well, it depends on what it's zoned. And I said, well, that's the property, it's zoned residential. I said, well, it depends on what residential, and then you would never answer.
We have about 7 different residential zone districts.
Well, but I pointed out the property. You knew what property I was talking about.
As I recall, you came in a couple weeks before this was even in front of the county.
Yeah, before it ever even went to county.
Right, so I hadn't even seen this at that point.
And it wasn't a unanimous vote at county.
It was 6-2, I saw that.
It was 6-2.
Yes.
And back in 2004, I think you have to go through, it got passed in December by the trustees of 04. And in November, it got voted for zoning. But I think there's some time in there between September and October before it got turned down. And then none of the residents were notified that it went back up for a vote again. And that's how we all remember it.
Well, I will say what I will say is, as a result of the township trustees and as Darrell, we put together a 5-year plan for PUDs. After 5 years, it goes back to original zoning. Why? Because we didn't want someone just to take a piece of property and feel because they had PUD or in our district that they would have the right to go ahead and build tomorrow a bunch of ratty-looking four-dwelling house or duplexes. We said, you know what, we're going to take it back. If it ever comes back for rezoning, we want PUD. Why PUD? It's not just to restrict our zoning. We want PUD to have some control on this. We have no control, but some control, what little control we have, to make sure this project is built properly. And under a PUD, which this is going in front of, if their bushes aren't built right, they're going to hear from us. If this project isn't squared down, dialed in tight, then that's why PUD is in place. And if he doesn't build in 5 years, then it's going to go back to residential. But since 1990, this is how this has worked. We changed the laws back in 1999 to get this squared away, so to help protect folks like yourself and myself to have some coverage. But they're bringing a project back that's the exact same, almost 9 years and 3/4, almost 10 years ago, a project with less density. I'm not sitting here trying to debate it. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from. What's that?
You don't want that.
Well, I don't.
I can totally understand where you're coming from, and he sat on the zoning board for 4 years, so he should understand zoning more than that. It's like my neighbor just planted 20 trees along a property line there, and they're all in my yard right now, and the residents behind me, they put a 6 foot away from my fence pine tree, and it's all in my yard right now. I'm cutting all these branches off all the time now because there is no really, thing. And I do agree that the development could be done there. I think 4 units is a nice fit. 6 would be a little bit on the edge, but 8 is too many. I do want to say that publicly because we do need some things done. We improve property and looks, but you're talking about traffic right next to the trail. You're talking about people getting hit and injured because either way, if you're talking baby boomers, some of them are getting Alzheimer's and they're going to hit somebody going out too. So, things happen. So that's where I'm coming from. Go ahead, Steve.
The fire chief checked that out. Can a fire chief get in there?
Darryl, can you answer that question? Because the notes indicated that they can.
They can get in there and turn around and that driveway and get into those 8 units?
Deputy Chief Freilich
He has to look
looked
it
at
over,
this.
don't you think that's important?
Hold on, Ms. Levinson. I think Darryl might have an answer for you here.
Yeah, I talked to Deputy Chief Freilich on this, and he was okay with it. He had no objections to the PUD.
And Mr. Freilich is in charge of making sure developments are right, fire safety, trucks and getting out of the site. Okay.
Deputy Chief Freilich is my plan review person. I don't see every project or plan. I can't go through all those. I have other duties to do. So Deputy Chief Freilich is the one that goes through this project. I had no knowledge that he went through it. I know he goes to all the zoning and plan meetings. If he okayed it, he checks radius of fire trucks, he checks access of fire trucks, and if he didn't have any objections, or if he has any objections, he gives the notes to Darryl, and Darryl goes ahead and forwards them to the Lucas County building.
How about the lawn fire truck, and a back steering? How should we get out of there once it's in?
That's,
It'll back out like it got in. The guy in the back drives it out just like he goes in. We can get that truck in areas, that big long truck can get into areas that our other ladder trucks can't. That big long truck can get into areas that some of our fire trucks can't because the turn radius is better than some of the other fire apparatus.
Mr. Mahoney, may I address something that you mentioned?
Sure can.
Maybe we'll return this to a little more stately conversation, but one of the things you just mentioned that's been brought up in
It's Neil, by the way.
Neil.
Neil.
All right, Neil.
Please.
The conversation about the history of this parcel has been brought up multiple times, that there's been previous, like in 2004, other things that have been approved for this. Though, one thing that I think that has changed over the years is the zoning resolution, because my understanding is, and Darryl, maybe you can clarify this too, but back in 2004, there was no maximum number of units for a PUD on an R1, and that's changed since then. So the current zoning resolution has a maximum number of units per acre. And that's why you would need the R3 designation to proceed forward with this project. Back in 2004, there was no maximum units per acre qualification. So back then, underneath that zoning resolution, it's my understanding at least, that this project could have gone forwards underneath an R1 designation with the proper PUD. But that's changed, that there is something that has changed since then. The current zoning resolution now has a maximum number of units per acre, where I don't believe that it did back then. Because the zoning back then, it's never changed to R3. There was a PUD that was approved, but it's never left R1. It went from A4 to R1, and it's never been R3. There has been PUDs approved, but those were all on the R1 designation.
Correct.
That's a good question, so maybe that's why they wanted more units back in 2004. Or we're trying to slam more in there. That's a good question.
I just think if you're gonna base a decision based on
That's a
the
good point.
historical
No, I'm glad you said
basis on this, I believe that that's, I don't think that's,
No, it's a very good
out of the fact that nothing has changed, I don't believe is entirely correct, so.
I appreciate you
That's all.
saying that.
You're welcome.
No, thanks. Yes, sir.
Also, another project that was going to be put in adjacent on the north side of Monarch, along 7 lot lines. It was less than 5 acres. They were going to put 30-some condos in there. That was when Mr. Moses was on the board here. And that went down. Because that was a PUD also. So if we open this thing up, that thing is going to go back on. There's 2 homes in that area are occupied by single families. As they just get together and decide to sell, you're going to have another PUD like our place.
Well, thank you for your comment.
Okay, thanks. Wrap it up.
Do we want to take a vote on this?
Why don't we wrap up the...
Right, close the
Yeah, yeah, close the public hearing.
public meeting at this time, 5:05.
We'll close the public hearing at this point at 5:05. And then, I guess there's a resolution, if
Yeah.
someone wants to call for a resolution.
I'll offer resolution 13-122 to approve the zone change from R1 to R3 PUD.
For the property located
I'm
at
sorry.
3621
Yeah.
North McCord, just to make it official.
Second?
I will second it.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Haddad?
No.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
It passes.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Darrell.
Well, we're moving on, just another clarification. At one point, there was a mention of the Sylvania Township Water and Sewer Department. There is no Sylvania, it's the Lucas County. I just want to make that clear.
We know. Greg?
Next up is the Public Works Department monthly report. Greg?
Good evening. The monthly report for November has been submitted for your review. I just have a few things to highlight on the cemetery cleanup. Of course, that's for the holiday season coming up. Item B, I'd like to chat. Mr. Beck, if you could show the additional picture. It's attached. Yeah, there you go, thank you. This is the crosswalk flasher pedestals that we'll install at Quarry Road and Springbrook Drive. You'll see more and more of these coming online throughout communities. Ours looks similar to that. This is solar powered, and the post will be a heavier duty post than the 2-inch square that you see there. Moving on, I'd like to comment and compliment both Sammy and Sheila for doing an outstanding job with their efforts with the fuel depot training, the software and the product tracking. We're not tracking gallons just yet, but we are moving forward. The software is a bit more complicated than we thought, so we're moving forward on that. Leaf pickup, of course, we started our last cycle yesterday. I'll say one thing about this year's leaf pickup. It just seems like the leaves came to the street very late in the season compared to other years. Of course, the post-storm tree removal that we had a week or two ago, 9 roadways were blocked, and forest lawn between Corville and Homerdale. That was blocked for about 5 days, but that's up and running now. We completed a site distance issue there at Springbrook and Rose Glen. This was a concern from the HOA, the Homeowners Association, and collectively with the administrator and our legal counsel, we were able to effectively remove that site distance issue, and I hope everybody's happy now. And it was rightfully so. The property owner just did not understand things about public right-of-way and such. And last item I'd like to say is we successfully completed the snow and ice training that's offered by the ODOT District 2 office in Lima, Ohio. 100% of our employees now carry the state certificate for this course. And it is meaningful. More and more communities are taking advantage of this training. So, pending your questions, that's all I have for the board.
I was seeing the guys picking up the leaves this morning, there are people still putting them out after they left. So there's places that they're going to go out there, just to let you know.
I think the leaves came down later from the trees, and that's why they're getting later to the road. It's just been a bad year, and, we didn't get a hard frost until a few weeks ago, and it's been cold ever since, so it's been tough, I think, for a lot of residents. But you guys continue to do a good job. I mean, they're moving large volumes of leaves during, when they can, and it's going pretty smooth, and I hope everybody has a chance to get them out to the street here before our final pickup started Monday, yesterday.
Yes, officially. Now, if we see more leaves out, of course, we'll do what we can to remove, pick up those leaves, but
it could be snowing by next Monday, so you never know.
That's correct. So,
thank you, Greg.
By Thursday, I think, they said.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thanks, Greg. Chief, do you have anything for the trustees? Trustees, do you have anything for the chief?
Nope.
Police department, Chief
See you
Foley?
tomorrow at 2.
Have your armor plate on. Yes. Chief Foley, anything for the trustees? Okay, next up is administrator. I'm going to bring Susan up in just a second. Before I pass out, as I said earlier, the draft. I'll let you look it over while she's talking. And we'll kind of make comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is a resolution to amend the Savinian Township's 125 cafeteria plan. I'll have Susan talk about that.
The U.S. Department of Treasury recently announced a change to the use it or lose it policy when you're talking about health flexible spending accounts. Currently, those employees that contribute to that, at the end of the year, if they have money left in their account, they lose it. The township actually is the one that gets the cash. So they made this modification. They're now allowing plans to be modified so that you can roll over $500 into the next plan year if we amend our cafeteria plan. So that's what I'm asking for tonight.
And that's not compounding, like if I had 500 this year and 500 next year, I can't roll over 1,000 the following, it's 500.
It's just 500.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll offer Resolution 13-126 to adopt amendment to Sylvania Township's 125 cafeteria plan.
Second.
Mr. Haddad?
Yep.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
And this will go into effect this year.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
Wish I would have known that earlier in the year. As you can see, I passed out a new policy having to do with reports from trustees' appointments. What's happening is sometimes we don't hear back from the appointments on a timely basis, and this policy would authorize me to request a quarterly report or sooner from any of our appointees to, and I'll just use the example from TARDA or any of them. And the second part is employees who travel to various seminars and conferences. I can request them at the time they request to go that I'd like a written report or so be a verbal report to the trustees on what they learned or did at the conference. if you're comfortable with this tonight, we can pass this tonight. If you'd like to talk to me outside of this meeting to tweak it or some things you were looking for, I can adjust it and then bring it back next time.
I think you did a very nice job. Perfect.
Thank you.
One thing I'd like to see is, someplace on our website that we could possibly post the minutes of the meetings that our appointees are going to. So if it's TARDA, somebody wants to look at it, they can always go to TARDA, but, these
Have a
are our
link.
residents
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Give them
Well,
access.
for TARDA, I know I get a copy of those minutes and we can just scan them in. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we can do that.
And then, some of the meetings, they only meet, or some of the appointments only meet maybe twice a year, so it certainly wouldn't be necessary for
Right,
them, so as a
right.
requested basis. Okay. Do we have
I'll-
resolution number?
Yeah, Rob, 13-128.
128.
Okay.
Offer 13-128 to accept the,
We could call it a reporting.
reporting, we'll call it as a reporting adoption resolution.
Second.
Mr. Hadia?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Next up is fiscal.
Mr. Beck's going to present our resolution today.
First resolution for your consideration is Resolution 13-123, and this is just a transfer of money, of funds for, to finish up the year. We've got some accounts that are year-end stuff where we need a little additional money, and that's what I'm asking for there.
I'll offer Resolution 13-123, transfer appropriations.
Second.
Mr. Hadia?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Next resolution is to increase the income or appropriation in some, actually, these are the police grant fund, the DARE grant, and the 975 fund, which is our medical, is our trust fund for our 125 plan. And we took in more money, and obviously people are spending it, so we need to increase those particular appropriations. So it's money coming from the employees.
All right. I'll offer resolution 13-124, increase appropriation.
Second.
Mr. Hadia?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Third resolution is 13-125, and if you remember correctly, at the end of the year, we try to clean up accounts where we haven't received the revenue, so we don't want them to be able to spend it at the last moment. So these, I'm asking for a reduction in appropriation, so which is these accounts.
Okay, I'll offer 13-125, reduce appropriation.
Second.
Mr. Hadia?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Last resolution I have is a request that we have to make to for the Lucas
Auditor.
County, the auditor's office, to get advancement of our taxes. And that's this resolution, and then I have some documents that Mr. Genowine and Mr. Simcoe have to sign if we approve this, so.
I'll offer Resolution 13-127 to request the advancement of taxes for the 2014 fiscal year.
Second.
Mr. Hadia?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Thank you, I have nothing more.
Open discussion, do we have anything?
Nobody signed in,
There.
I have nothing.
Hearing it, okay. Well,
Oh, we got the meeting tomorrow night with the Township Association. That'll be my last one, so we're doing it here, 7 o'clock.
and tomorrow, the
Budget hearings.
Budget
budget hearings
hearings
at 2, and the Sylvania CIC meeting at 7:30.
In the morning.
In the morning.
And with that, I would like to offer a motion to adjourn at 5:18.
Second.
Mr. Hadia?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
I gotta get over to Sister City's now.
You know what, Conrado was right. She told me that, the most difficult decisions you will make.